What's up, world? It's Carpo here, and gonna do a random rant about science. And I'll be straight up, man. I'm not a scientist. I know that doesn't surprise anybody, but it's like the science that we take it for granted. You know, the science that the scientists out there who discover things and bring new stuff to light. And I think that a lot of people, I don't know how others view it, this is just my particular view, I think that some people say that there's us and the scientists. You know, that here's the scientists that choose to take science and discover things for us. I don't really see it that way anymore. I see it as we are the scientists, all of us. And that most scientific funding, although a lot of it has corporate interest at the heart of it, there's a lot of private funding as well for particular research that might help benefit humanity. So one of the biggest, the most expensive scientific project ever undertaken was the Large Hadron Collider that was built in Switzerland. It's a 17-mile long supercollider, and they're smashing, protons into each other and seeing what sort of, particles bounce around in there. I mean, it's an amazing feat of engineering. It's the most scientific, intense scientific experiment. And I just got done watching the second half of a documentary about it. And they were showing the part, I don't know how many of you follow this kind of stuff, but last year they discovered the Higgs boson, or they think they discovered the Higgs boson particle, which is supposedly the kind of the smoking gun to help explain much of the standard model for the universe. So they have to go back online in 2015. There will be more research to be done. But the whole thing is, people who have heard this may have heard of it as the God particle. And after thinking about that, I realized that people mistake that. I think that whoever came up with that, it's a poor choice of words, but what it would really be would be rather than the particle that is God, I would say that it's the holy grail for scientists of the standard model of the universe. So it would be the God particle, like, as in that type of context, in my eyes. That, like, oh God, I found it, kind of thing. But, so they did discover it, or they think they discovered it, and the implications are great. Science is, everybody's dancing up and down and whatnot, but it's like there are certain issues that still need to be resolved about the standard model of the universe. First off, the standard model that we have now in physics can't explain gravity. It doesn't even include gravity in it. That's kind of the no-brainer right there. It's very tough to take a theory seriously that omits one of the most important forces in our lives, which is gravity. And now, don't beat me down if you're a scientist. You know more about this than I do. I totally respect that. I may be missing some certain things in here, and I'm definitely not going to be able to lay it out like, like a scientist, like I know what I'm doing. But the whole idea is that dark matter is the missing force that helps to explain the standard model of the universe. Dark matter. And dark matter would have to make, I think, a total of like 27% of the universe. It would have to be dark matter, which hasn't been observed and cannot be really understood. We don't know what the hell dark matter is, basically. It's a theory to explain why the other theory doesn't work. I'm not debating it, but the current standard model of the universe only explains 4% of the energy that exists, that we know in existence. So, there's 25 times more stuff out there that we're not answering with this model. One scientist may say, well, if it's that far off, then it needs to be thrown out. Another might say, well, we just need to keep looking. And this is the hardest part about science, to find the answers. It's because we have some who will cast an old idea aside to go for something more modern and new. Others who would say, you can't just abandon it because you didn't find the answers. They're both true, but eventually we have to throw aside certain theories. So, there's all this talk about, dark matter and antimatter and whatnot. Well, you may have heard of supersymmetry, which this is kind of the answer to the problem of where this extra energy is. It's a supersymmetrical universe to where every quark, let's say, has a squark. Every proton has a sproton, or I don't remember how it works. Every different particle has a counterpart to it, a secondary side, which accommodate or makes up for the lack of whatever type of energy, however this works. It's basically throwing things out of thin air again. The problem with supersymmetry is that there's absolutely no evidence whatsoever for it, and they hoped when they turned on the collider that they would be able to see some of these unknown particles, and they didn't see any. Some people claim they didn't have enough power to see them, so maybe that's possible. But you see where these things go. People have very, very strong beliefs towards one type of physics. It's like religion in a way in certain circles. People become very stuck in their way of thinking, and there's people out there who believe in a 5-dimensional universe, and other scientists who say that there's 10-dimensional universe, and somewhere in there is maybe there aren't. Maybe nobody's right. I don't know. I think about one of the most fascinating things for me about, I guess, life in general is that if you throw all the physics aside, all the science, all the understanding, no matter how much of that we have, there's still things missing. We'll never be able to answer with the scientific method, I don't think, anyway. I think there are certain questions that just aren't meant to be answered, but the idea of chaos is one that throws a crimp in many people's ideas and theories, that the idea that things fall apart, everything starts at one point and degrades. A rock turns to dust, but it can't turn back into a rock. A bottle breaks, but it won't turn from glass into a bottle, that kind of stuff. Unless created by the hands of man. But that's just it. Or created by the hands of man, or created by the hands of nature, in the same token. Creating a flower, a new species, something different. But the whole idea that life forms out of nothing and carries on information into future generations. Information that's passed on genetically, one way or another. It's just utterly fascinating. And it doesn't, it's, I guess what I'm getting at is that no matter how good we get at explaining theories about the roots of the universe, the Big Bang or the Big Crunch, all this stuff just seems to pale in comparison to existence itself. Like trying to understand how the universe formed to me is just, I can't argue against Big Bang Theory because I'm not a scientist, I haven't done all the homework in every single equation. I don't know. I just go with what my gut says on those things, but that also leads us to who do you believe, and you have to believe the scientists to an extent, but you can't just go believe everything science is telling you. Of course, that goes with everything in life. Don't believe anybody 100%. So we're kind of at the mercy of one another, and that's why it's so awesome to learn on the internet. I think rather than learning from 2 or 3 very educated individuals on a particular subject, we get dozens and dozens, which may follow those main 3 people, but the truth tends to surface when all the lies fall aside. There's some really good quotes about it, but I won't go into that. But basically, truth always reveals itself in the end. It's not easily done with 1 or 2 people trying to tell you that they have the answer. But when you have dozens of people, the truth tends to filter down. And with science, I see that happening too. People can't defend old scientific views anymore like they used to. If you come up with a preposterous theory, you're going to get ridiculed. other side of that is that if you come up with a great new theory and it doesn't fit the current paradigm, you'll also be cast out. So this leaves some circles of physics to be very closed door. This is the way it is, and until we figure out how to prove this is true, don't try to change our minds. Or the old saying, don't tell me the truth, I've already made up my mind. We see that a lot. So anyway, enough about science. I guess I'll go now. Thanks for listening to me ramble for no particular reason. I don't know why I even make videos sometimes like this. It's maybe just because I'm thinking things through on my own too. I'm not just... Sometimes I've wondered, it's like, do I do this to hear myself talk? No, because I don't really... It's funny because I never watch my own videos before I upload them. But sometimes I'll go back and run into one, like answering a comment or something, and I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot I made that. And to kind of learn from it myself, be like, oh, I forgot about that, And all these ideas in science are starting to come together, so it's nice to be able to hear so many people's viewpoints online about, what resonates with them. So, anyway, take care, everybody.